This is GBC News, the headlines. The GSD says Gibraltar's proposed conflicts of interest law fails to include clear safeguards to prevent political favouritism. The Gibraltar NASUWT says changes to school hours are down to government. Meanwhile, parents raise childcare concerns and fewer school attendance days. The DPC approves the new design for an urban wastewater treatment plant at Europa Point. And school children are invited to come up with names for the new electric buses. Good evening. The GSD says Gibraltar's proposed conflicts of interest law fails to include clear safeguards to prevent political favouritism in awarding of high-value contracts and senior public appointments. Opposition leader Keith Asapadli says the bill is nothing like the Canadian model and will allow abuse to continue unchecked.
The opposition argues the draft legislation contains no meaningful restrictions on ministers or senior public officials moving directly into publicly funded roles or contracts after leaving office. The GSD says the Canadian model contains clear legal prohibitions, including restrictions on awarding contracts to relatives or close associates of ministers, which it says are absent from Gibraltar's draft bill. Leader of the opposition, Keith Asapadli, argues the draft law will not properly prevent conflicts of interest and says people are entitled to question why stronger protections have not been included. Mr. Asapadli also compared the proposed legislation to the Anti-Corruption Authority Act, passed more than 3 years ago but still not brought into force, describing it as another example of promised reforms failing to materialize.
A Gibraltar NASUWT Teachers Union representative says changes to school hours have been driven by government and not by teachers. Speaking on GBC's Viewpoint last night, Janique Bejake said she did not believe the 7.6 fewer school attendance days would impact students negatively, adding teachers would make it work.
Okay, so firstly I need to leave it extremely clear that this was not initiated by teachers themselves. We were approached by Minister Cortés. The Gibraltar NSWT executive was called into the Department of Education and was given a presentation of what the removal of some hours would look like, what their proposal was. From the very beginning, we left it very clear that that obviously was going to change our working conditions and that we would like to consult our members.
Is it fair to say that everything the NASUWT Teachers Union in Gibraltar asked for, you got given everything that you asked for?
Correct. The July, August being sort of completely free was put forward by the government themselves, as well as a 2-week period in Easter. Those were proposals that came from HMGOG. When you count the hours or the lessons, it works out to a reduction of 7.6 days only.
We already had less than the UK before. We already had less than the UK. And now we have even... How do you justify that?
Well, I don't need to justify it. Firstly, because like I said before, it's actually HMGOG who wanted to make the changes. We are confident in our teachers. We believe that our teachers will be able to deliver. We've been delivering for many years, and we are confident that teachers can make it work.
Meanwhile, on Viewpoint, parents said they were blindsided and shocked by the news that changes to school hours will be implemented within weeks, raising concerns about childcare and fewer school attendance days. However, retired teacher and ex-chair of the Gibraltar NASUWT, Charlie Bishop, said the changes would help prevent teacher burnout, while GCSE student Ariana Giannani said students should have been consulted.
It's good for the students and it's good for the teachers. I can explain later on and go into more detail why. I understand also, though, that perhaps some people feel that maybe it could have been announced sooner, and also that it might cause maybe for some parents, mainly in the primary, or parents of primary school children, who might have issues with childcare or whatever,
Well, we were pretty much blindsided by the whole announcement last week. Some parents already planned their annual leave, or they haven't actually got it yet. So they've had to ask some of their employers this week, and they've been told no. As other people have already booked that time off, so therefore they can't have that time off. And the children who haven't been to nursery into a childcare setting for the last 2-3 years, where are they going? You can't put a child into a childcare setting just for 3 weeks of the year.
And what we can't do is detach ourselves from the reality of what many people in Gibraltar struggle with every single day, and that is low incomes. And how are they going to manage now paying for nurseries, paying for people to take care of their children if they do not have the support from family members? How are they going to survive this? Because incomes are low for a lot of people in Gibraltar, and then annual leave is also low. So there has to be some sort of impact. Is it going to impact children that are below average? They are going to be left behind, whilst teachers unfortunately have to rush through these syllabus, and they're going to be left behind. Or we're going to lose project learning days, days out for day trips, sports days. Are we going to lose any of this to be able to cover the syllabus? That's a concern.
I think from a first impression, it's a good thing, because, we all think, oh, more holidays. But if we actually unpack the situation, like you were saying, I worry about the time, because now doing my GCSEs, I've found that being in a school with such a vast, like a plethora of students with different abilities, it is hard to get through all the content that we have to for our exams.
And I don't think, as I said, from my experience as a teacher, having 7.6 less days of teaching time is not going to affect people being able to succeed in their A-levels, in their GCSEs and all that, because... and what we don't want is burnout, the burnout that you get in the UK. This will go some way to maybe preventing this in the future, where people get so burnt out and stressed eventually that they'll give up teaching and move to another profession.
We wouldn't even be here if, as Mr. Cortez said, there was a consultation. The consultation was specifically about half days, and that is probably why they only received 200 responses. There was no mention of the spring midterm. There was no mention of an increase in Easter, and I think that is what the public have been blindsided by.
It's really ironic, because they are talking about changes for primarily students, right? Yet they consult no students. And us as older students, we have a view, and I'm grateful that I'm sitting on this panel now to be able to express it, because otherwise we get no say in the decisions that are made for us.
It's just that we need to either look at a way of increasing annual leave for people. Obviously, that will impact businesses, which might not be great, but we need to support working parents. We need to be in a situation that families that genuinely have low incomes, and we need to means test and support them with childcare. You cannot continue to put so much pressure on these working parents, which will essentially end up with mums or dads having to give up their careers, which is the worst thing.
The new design for an urban wastewater treatment plant at Europa Point has been approved by the Development and Planning Commission. The plans also include a pumping station at Little Bay and a pipeline through Keatley Way Tunnel.
Plans for a wastewater treatment plant for Gibraltar have been in the works for over a decade. But while previous contracts and designs have fallen through, the chosen location has not changed. It will be built at the brewery crusher site, with Europa Point also the place where the rock currently pumps its raw sewage into the sea. This was recently highlighted in The Guardian and also raised in the UK Parliament by Labour MP Adam Jogi. Now, the latest steps have been taken towards addressing it, with the DPC granting outline approval to the new plans for a plant. The new design for Eco Waters Limited will be able to process 26,000 cubic metres of wastewater per day, with this expected to rise to 36,000 by 2049. It's designed to allow for future upgrades, and the building is intended to integrate with the surrounding landscape, with a low-lying green roof. The project also includes a pumping station at the Little Bay car park to intersect with the existing sewer network. It would also include a concrete-covered pipeline through Keatley Way Tunnel, with a raised walkway built on top. Construction of the plant is expected to take 2 to 2.5 years, with construction of the Little Bay facility expected to take 10 months and planned to avoid bathing season. There would also be a commissioning period for the wastewater plant. Following questions from the environmental safety group, the developers said all odour-producing operations would be carried out indoors. The ESG's Janet Howard also called for the Little Bay facility to be better integrated into the landscape there as well, with the applicants saying they were already working on proposals. The Minister for the Environment, John Cortes, also backed calls to ensure the changes to Keatley Way Tunnel are safe for both pedestrians and cyclists. Town planning said the project would have long-term environmental benefits for Gibraltar and its waters, with DPC members agreeing that the new design was an improvement on previous submissions. Town planning recommended approval with conditions including a construction environmental management plan, water quality monitoring, geotechnical stabilisation measures and an archaeological watching brief. The Commission unanimously approved the outline planning application.
Well, in other news, 2 companies registered in Gibraltar in the 1980s have been identified by Italian prosecutors and the Italian finance police as allegedly being linked to a major mafia money laundering operation.
According to reports in the Italian and international press, assets seized by the Guardia di Finanza, the Italian finance police, include gold, financial holdings and luxury properties across several countries, with investigators allegedly tracing investments in Spain, Gibraltar, the Cayman Islands and Lebanon. Italian regional newspaper La Sicilia identifies Toucan Estates Limited and Strangeways Limited. It says both companies were registered in Gibraltar in 1986 and that these acted as corporate and financial vehicles allegedly linked to the network. The newspaper claims the companies did not produce goods or services, but were instead allegedly used to open encrypted bank accounts in Andorra, Luxembourg, Monaco and Switzerland, allowing money to be transferred internationally and invested in financial markets. The investigation centres on the network surrounding Matteo Messina Denaro, one of Italy's most notorious mafia bosses, who was arrested in 2023 after spending 30 years on the run. While Gibraltar has been identified as part of the alleged financial structure, there are currently no allegations against Gibraltar authorities or local financial institutions. GBC has contacted the Gibraltar Financial Intelligence Unit and the Royal Gibraltar Police to ask whether they've been involved in the international investigation or whether any inquiries are being carried out locally in connection with the allegations.
Well, in response to GBC questions, the Royal Gibraltar Police says it is not currently supporting any investigation by Italian authorities. At the Supreme Court, the Crown's case in the Johannes Green trial is nearing its end. Today, the jury finished listening to the defendant's police interview. Mr. Green admitted insulting the complainant when he was angry, but denied ever being physical towards her. He also told police he had flipped a table in anger, punched doors and cracked his windscreen. However, he accused the complainant of having anger issues and of also being violent. Mr. Green told officers some of what the complainant had said was true, but some was not, adding that he had nothing to hide. Johannes Green of Glass's estate faces several charges, including rape and assault. He denies all charges. Well, staying with the courts, a 22-year-old local man has pleaded guilty to wounding with intent. Michael Martin appeared represented by lawyer Lee De Bono. The offence dates back to June last year. A pre-sentencing report has been ordered and Martin has been remanded in custody. He is due to be sentenced on the 15th of July. While you're watching GBC News, still to come, we'll tell you who has received certificates for professional advancement through holistic skills. Can you name the bus? And we take a peep into Gibraltar's tiniest art gallery. We'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back. Professional Advancement Through Holistic Skills, known as PATHS, works with individuals through various programs to provide accessible learning opportunities. Well, this week, Employment Minister Santos has presented certificates to those taking part with HMP Windmill Hill, the Supported Employment Programme, Work Reintegration Programme, the Economic Development Employment Company, Ocean Views, and the Drug and Alcohol Rehabilitation Services.
The PATHS programme tailors learning opportunities for individuals with different needs and backgrounds, with the aim of providing pathways into employment. The Minister for Equality, Employment, Culture and Tourism has handed out certificates to those taking part who have completed courses in transport and logistics and construction, as well as others who've completed workshops in drama and art therapy. Those who've taken part in online and in-person wellbeing and employability courses were also awarded certificates by the Minister, who spoke of the origins of PATHS and how the programme came into being.
This was a vision that we had at the very beginning of coming into office, which is to offer upskilling to every individual in Gibraltar. We have, or at least we hope we have everyone covered. We have the education system, we have the college, we have further education, undergraduate, and there was a gap from people who'd gone into the working environment sooner than they may have expected, or people whose life situations were different, and we wanted to give everyone an opportunity to thrive and upskill and make sure that employment is not something that is a long distance between the individual and the actual objective. The point of PATHS is exactly that, making sure that there is a link between yourself, the employment sector, and a belief in yourself, so that every individual can believe in themselves and know what they can achieve.
Thanking the teams and collaborators and everyone involved in the PATHS programme, the Minister said it continues to demonstrate the importance of accessible and inclusive learning.
School children are being invited to come up with names for the new electric buses that will be on our roads over the next few months. The Minister for Transport is looking for fun, original and inspiring names for the 8 buses. Adrian Dignam Mills from the Transport Ministry told Kellyanne Borge about the response so far.
It's been quite overwhelming, actually. My inbox is mega full. And entries, they're not just limiting to one entry. Some children are sending in 8, 10 names on per email. So we're looking at several hundred at the moment. And if they have any other ideas, mt@gibraltar.gov.gi, and we'll just put them in the hat.
So how are you going to whittle it down?
I have no idea.
Honest answer.
I think we'll sit down as a department and we'll go through. Obviously, some will be really wacky ideas, which may not suit, but others are. There are a lot of nature-themed, green-themed ideas coming through. I'm quite encouraged that we're going to find some winners in there.
So who exactly is able to take part in this competition? What are the requirements?
All school children from nursery age all the way through up to university, I suppose. You know, if you're in education, you know, we are still considered a student. The actual winning child gets to take his whole class on a VIP trip to the nature reserve and all the associated sites with it. So we could end up taking a class of 30 to do the whole rock tour sort of thing, and we'll do it in the bus. Yeah. So
and that child will be very popular, I'm sure.
And it will be in the bus
with his classmates.
Yeah.
Oh, how exciting!
So yeah.
And what can you tell us about the buses themselves? I know they had some trial runs recently. So how did that go?
Well, I was actually on one of the trial runs with the bus company and with Stuart Harrison from the ministry, and Minister came as well, and we literally flew up the hill. There was no lag, there was no problems. It got through the upper town perfectly, so the upper rock's going to be a breeze.
The Arts and Crafts Association is hosting Gibraltar's first ever Tiny Art Gallery. This miniature art exhibition by artist Helen Ria features familiar sights, landmarks and faces of Gibraltar's local scenery.
Even I was surprised at just how tiny these artworks are. Travel-sized watercolour pieces and canvas are on display in a handmade miniature gallery.
Oh, well, space is at a premium in Gibraltar sometimes. But yeah, I was inspired by the idea of little items you can travel with, little items that it's a challenge to make them. So I usually paint fairly large images, fairly large paintings. I thought this is a challenge to make it small. We've not always got a lot of space, to work with. In the shop as well, we all share space, so I thought I need to make the most of the space that I have. I think my inspiration really comes from the customers we have. They want something that they can take and keep, put in a pocket, put in a suitcase, give to a loved one. And the smaller, the better, really, I would say. But yeah, like I said, it was all about a challenge as well. I'm always painting in this particular size and landscape or portrait. I thought, let's just get some paper, make some shapes, and make frames. I was really keen to start making frames and things. So it's a combination of factors, really.
And are you planning on maybe doing a giant art gallery exhibition in the future?
Not yet, no, but I do have a regular size one in the works. So yeah, there's definitely a bigger exhibition coming for my work and some other local artists that I've been, recruiting, putting together something, and it will be in a location on Main Street. Will be revealed when we get to the time, but yeah, I'm looking forward to that too, life-sized.
Yeah. What do you hope to achieve from this event?
Well, I really hope to achieve bringing this to people's attention to show that no matter how small it is, you can still be creative. You don't need a lot of space, you don't need a studio, a workshop to create art. You can create it at your table or on your balcony or something. You can create it in a small space. You don't need all this equipment, you don't need all this space. You can still be creative on a small scale.
And will you be selling any prints or maybe original art pieces?
Yes, so all of these are for sale. Every original piece is for sale. As well, I do sell prints of my larger works, which you can get in the arts and crafts shop upstairs above Gianni's where we are today. So there's other spots around Gibraltar where they do sell them too. But you can have prints and originals of my work and the other arts and crafters that we have in here too.
In terms of this sort of art exhibition, which one has been your favorite so far, or maybe your favorite process to make?
I think I really enjoyed coming up with the concept of the tiny frames. I'm using tiny little bits of wood, little lollipop sticks, detailing them to look like wood. I've really enjoyed that, and I really enjoy painting Casemate Square on a very quiet day. I love doing the architecture and the stonework. It's really enjoyable and satisfying to paint. So I enjoyed that one, as well as the macaques. We've got the mother and son macaques. It's good fun painting them as well.
And this tiny exhibition is a prime example that in the art world, size really doesn't matter.
The exhibition at the Arts and Crafts Association is open until the 2nd of June. Now, May into June can only mean one thing: silverware is up for grabs. Here's Robin Shepherd-Capurro with the weekend's sporting action.
Well, a quiet couple of days ahead on the Rock, but plenty happening abroad. We'll begin here at home. The Futsal Rock Cup wraps up this weekend. Back-to-back semi-finals tomorrow. Newly crowned league champions Lynx face Bavaria at 6. And that's followed by Inter Gibraltar of the 2nd Division versus Europa. The winners will have, barely 24 hours to recharge for the final on Sunday. Big day tomorrow across the border. The Gaba girls take on Chiclana in Chiclana in the final of the Cádiz Under-14 Basketball League. Unfortunately, star player Briella Bagu picked up an injury earlier this week, so she'll miss out. But the likes of vice-captain Erin Doherty and others still believe. In athletics, Monaco is the host of this year's European Small Countries Championships. Takes place on Sunday, one day of competition at the iconic Stade Louis II. Gibraltar up against the likes of Andorra, Cyprus, Moldova and Malta. And Special Olympics Gibraltar are sending a team of 4 to compete in bowling at Switzerland's National Summer Games this weekend. A great opportunity for athletes Adam Stewart, Glenn Wimbledon, John Joshua Buttigieg and Shane Martinez to represent the Rock on the international stage.
Well, that's all from the GBC News team for now. Don't forget, you can always catch up on our website and social media page. Have a great weekend.